Welcome to Extremely Valid Points.
We're three business owners and friends who enjoy talking about business, marketing, and creativity.
Along the way, we just might happen to make some extremely valid points.
So we'd love it if you would join us in today's conversation. Welcome to episode 14 of Extremely Valid Points. My name's Jenny Sala.
And I'm Nathan Sala.
And I'm Dave Wilkins.
Yeah, welcome, guys. Today, we are going to be continuing our 4-part series on client retention. And today's episode is about social media engagement, and particularly about how you can retain your customers by the use of social media. So glad to have you guys here. Let's jump in. Jenny, what are we talking about today?
Thank you, Nathan. So we're talking about customer retention. How do we hold on to those customers that we have? Because this ongoing theme is it's cheaper to keep a customer than it is to get a new one. Tune into episode 1 and 2 where we talk about, we have some hard statistics we share that explain why it's so important to just keep a customer and how much money you can really make on the customer you already have. Marketing to the customer you already have, getting repeat business, upselling your current customers is the best strategy before you even go out and try and find new ones. And so in the first episode, we talked about communicating with your clients or customers using email marketing and how that is really the number one strategy according to GigaOM research. That's the number one strategy for client retention and for reaching out and staying engaging with them. The second best strategy is content marketing. We talked about that in episode 13. And today we're going to talk about social media marketing and how to talk to your existing customers using social media. Okay, so let's talk about social media marketing. Let's talk about strategy and why and how do we reach people on social media?
Yeah, great question. Because I think, we're obviously all familiar with social media just on a personal level, but how can we really use it for our businesses to make sure that we're staying on customers' minds and out there and engaged with them?
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to point out again, we're not talking about client acquisition and getting new customers, but we're talking about you've already got the customer, you've already made the sale. This is after the sale, and the knowledge that, and I don't know if you already said this, but it's 5 to 25 times more expensive to acquire a new customer. Did you already say that?
I didn't.
So, yeah, Harvard Business Review published this study that said it's way, 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 way more expensive to...
Is that like 4 ways?
There's 4 ways. And
should have been at least 5.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll edit out one more way. Way more expensive to get a new client than it is to keep an existing client. And so your profit goes up significantly when you resell to an existing client rather than trying to get a new client and start from scratch and just try to sell them one product.
Right.
So it's almost this revolution happening in business understanding where it's a pot of gold to sell to your existing clients. And a lot of people don't take advantage of it.
Exactly.
So social media is the third most effective way to keep your existing customers.
Right. And it is a very effective way, even though we're saying it's the third most, it's still very effective to do. One thing to keep in mind, when we talk to a lot of businesses out there, they're like, well, I know I should be on social media. I know I should do this. But I think that part of the reason why many companies don't do it or they try it and then they're like, this isn't really working is they're not really sure why they're doing it. And when you know why you're doing it, then you kind of can work backwards and create content that way. So you should have some goals in mind. Like, what are we aiming to do when we get on social media and when we start talking to our customers? So the first thing that we suggest you really consider doing is working on building rapport. Having social media, it's an opportunity to connect your brand with your customers in a more personal way. And so your approach has to be a little bit different than it would be on other platforms or other ways of communicating. And so you want to keep that in mind. People are on social media usually to relax and to be casual. And so your voice can be a little bit different. You still want your voice to be on brand, but you also want to just keep in mind who your audience is on that particular social media platform and what they're there to do. So we want to build rapport by connecting with them on a personal level. This is an opportunity as well for you to kind of show up a little bit more personally yourselves. So like if you're a small business, what people love about small businesses is they know you. They know the owners. They know the faces. And so don't be afraid to show the faces of the company, to show, a picture of who they're going to see when they call your phone number, who's going to answer the phone, so they can put a face to a name. And so it feels more personal.
Yeah, and I've just been reading a little bit about how when you actually do attach personality to your brand, whether it's your own identity or your customers or something like that, when they can put a face to it and really connect real people to your brand, it's just so much more effective.
Totally. And anytime we work with a family-owned company, we tell them, you need to have a picture of your family on your website. And you should put definitely social media even more so. Don't be afraid to put those personal photos. I mean, and when I say personal, I don't mean like you shouldn't have a photo of you in a swimsuit on a beach or anything like that.
Unless maybe you sell swimsuits.
Yeah. Or beaches.
Or beaches.
But, maybe it's like behind the scenes kind of photos, like
Sure.
pictures of you working at your desk, or if you're a solar installer, you're out on a project and you're on a roof, carefully take a selfie of you on the roof or something like that.
Yeah, safety first. I think it's a interesting point because, with social media, sometimes I feel like I want to call it anti-social media because of some of the negative things that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
But, and we look at it sometimes and you can say like, oh, everything's so carefully curated and people's lives look so perfect, or maybe we think their business is perfect and my business will never be there. So it's not, again, we're going to go back to the authenticity part here, right? So it's not about presenting a false self or a perfect self, but there are a lot of positives in your business and things that you can just, maybe you're taking a negative and putting it into a positive. How are you solving a problem for somebody? What are you actually doing? And I think it's that behind the scenes look at what really goes on in the daily life of your customers, of your company,
Yes.
any of those things that help people feel like they're a part of it, right?
Exactly.
There's a local frozen yogurt shop here in town that the owner told this story where somebody was asking him, what has really worked for social media because they had like thousands of likes and everybody was like, what's your secret? What are you doing? And he said exactly that. What you're saying is like the behind the scenes types of stuff really works. And he said the most effective, the most shared and liked photo we ever did was we had these two identical twins come in and get frozen yogurt, and we weighed them, and both of them had the exact same weight of their yogurt when they had to put all their toppings and sprinkles and everything on top. It was just something. So he snapped a quick picture of it at the register to the two twins and their two yogurts weighing the exact same thing, put it on social media, and it blew up. Everybody was like, no, I can't believe it.
Wow.
I wonder if they had the same toppings. I'm curious about that.
Did they have the same number of sprinkles?
They must have
Did
had
they count that?
exactly 47 and a half, because there's always that broken sprinkle.
Ah, yes. Well, even
Nice.
as we're promoting the podcast, the behind the scenes stuff has been the most shared, liked content, right?
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. So thanks for all 5 of you who liked our photo.
Thanks, Mom.
So, like if you're a food truck, maybe you should take a selfie of you picking out, vegetables for your ingredients, or maybe
Yeah.
At the local fresh farmers market.
getting gas. Is that what you mean by behind the scenes? Pumping up your do food trucks use gas? I don't know how they get. I've never seen one at a gas station. Have you? I how do they get gas? Anyway, that's off topic.
Very
Join us for our
Tune into the
podcast.
next episode.
well, it certainly, it certainly helps when it's interesting.
Yeah.
I think that getting gas could be a little bit mundane unless there's something interesting happening while you're getting gas, something unexpected. You want to share things that are unexpected and different and fun.
Like if a bird lands on your hand while you're getting gas.
Yes, that would be
So-
a great opportunity.
So if you can stage
share.
that, would that be good to do too?
Yes, but we're digressing a little bit. Let's go back to our purpose, the purpose of sharing on social media. So, one, building rapport. Another purpose for sharing on social media is to make your customers feel special. And so this is really an opportunity for you to engage with them on a personal level. If they're commenting, if they make a comment on your post, reply back. Even if
Yeah.
it's just to say, so glad you like, just find something to say back to them, because that right there is a golden opportunity. If they're engaging and talking and making comments on your posts, it's a wonderful opportunity to talk back with them. They will feel special. They will feel seen. They'll feel known. They'll feel appreciated. And so that's a great thing to do to make them feel special.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real opportunity that we have to have this interaction with our customers, right? Where we never had that before, because in the world before with advertising, where it was only broadcast commercials and radio spots, it's a one-way street, right?
Yes.
But now it's, and you had the yellow pages or whatever. Right now, people are posting reviews, they're interacting with you, and you have a vehicle to get back to that person. That's you're creating that connection with somebody that you didn't have an opportunity to before. And if they have that connection, like I know, you find somebody that is a celebrity maybe to you, and maybe they don't have a huge following, but there's somebody that you look up to and admire, and if they write you back, you feel like, wow, they took the time to just answer me back. And now I want to keep that relationship going,
Exactly. Yeah. So another great way to make people feel special for following you on social media is by creating offers and special sales opportunities, special discounts that you're only giving to people who are following you on, let's say, Instagram, or exclusively for our Facebook followers. Here's a coupon code for today only. So Nielsen actually did a study, and they said 53% of the people who decide to follow a brand on social media do it to get special offers. They're expecting those deals.
Yeah.
So it's a great, reward people for following you, for taking the time to go to your page and hitting like and saying to themselves, I would like to see more about this company in my newsfeed. That's a big deal. So you got to reward people for that and make it worth it to them so that they don't click unfollow.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, that's good. I remember when Facebook first came out, I used to choose, my decision was based on kind of what I wanted other people to know about me. So I would like a certain brand because I wanted other people to know, this is part of, I feel strongly enough about this brand that I actually kind of want it out there that I like this brand. It's part of kind of my identity.
Sure.
It's good.
So I think that that's a great idea. You can just say, we want to reward you for following us, and here's a great offer. Now, if you don't have a retail type of company, how can you reward people if you have like a service?
Great question. Yeah. So I think, once again, that whole adding value thing that we talked about in the first two episodes with email marketing, content marketing also applies here as well. If you don't have a sale you can offer, then tips and tricks or new things about whatever the topic is relating to your company. If you're a legal firm, a new law update would definitely be something I would be interested in knowing if I've decided to follow a legal firm. If there's a new law passing and it affects me and it affects my business, something like that would be really helpful. And in our world, there's changes to technology all the time. Every time WordPress has an update, or Google makes some new rules, Facebook changes their advertising rules or has to change their advertising rules because Apple makes them. All those kinds of things are valuable information to people who are following you. And so, you have to know your audience. You have to know why they're following you and what value you can add to them and what things they might find interesting. But absolutely great content is a way to make people feel special. And the third reason that you're on social media kind of goes along with that, and that is just to improve communication with your customers. So it's a great opportunity to tell them what's going on with you, what's new, what new services you're doing or offering. It is an opportunity to occasionally brag about, a happy client you might have. Once again, that's a great way to make people feel special. If you put like a client showcase on your page, a photo of one of your clients and a problem you solve for them and how happy they are. But really, you brag about yourself a little and you brag about your client a lot.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's great. They're going to be your best person to kind of pat you on the back rather than you patting yourself on the back, right?
Exactly. And we always want to make it about our customers and not about ourselves.
Yeah, because they're going to see another customer and feel like, oh, I want to be in that person's shoes, that, they're taking advantage of this great deal or great sale, or that service really helped them. I want that same treatment.
Exactly.
So everybody talks about social media engagement. Now, how do you connect with people through social media?
So one thing you need to remember when you're posting, especially on Facebook or Instagram, is, they both have these algorithms that Facebook has created. Back in the day when Facebook first started, you could see anybody's post anytime they posted it, and it was just kind of like this spill out of like, if somebody posted something 3 seconds ago, that would be at the top of your feed, and then it would just kind of go down based on time. But over time, Facebook has changed the way they show content, and they decide what content people care about and what content people don't care about. So they will decide whether or not they like your post, and they'll decide whether or not they want to share it with your followers.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but if you really want to earn Facebook views and create posts that are engaging, and that's the way they call it, is they're ranking things by engagement, how engaging your post is. There are some tips and tricks and things that you can do. If you get one person to like it, then they're going to show it to a few more people. If more people like it, they'll keep showing it. If people are sharing it, they'll show it. And they do prioritize content and decide what they think is more engaging and what's not. So the most engaging thing that you can do is video, without a doubt. And even more so with video, I would say going live video. It's the only thing right now that if you post on social media, on Facebook, and you go live, that people who follow you will get a push notification on their phone that you are live in that moment. And people will either think that's great or they might be a little annoyed by it, but they'll probably get a notification. And so you do get a little bit more visibility when you go live. Again, when you go live, it's okay for it to be raw and kind of behind the scenes. You don't want it to be too formal, but you also want it to be interesting. You don't want to go live and then have people go, "This is so boring. Why am I watching this?" and leave. So there are some tricks to that I think we'll talk about more in another episode where we talk about Facebook and posting to Facebook. But video in general is a really great way to get shares and likes and views. And the trick with video is you want to upload it directly to Facebook rather than like share a YouTube link or a Vimeo link, because Facebook doesn't like it as much when you post links to other pages that take them off of their site.
Right. Yeah, you definitely want to keep they're trying to keep all the viewers on their site as long as possible. That's their goal, right? So
right.
That's the other thing too with video, is that it used to be the shorter the content, the better. But now people are watching for much longer. We talk about like the short attention span that the internet has created, which is true. But also now people are they're spending hours and hours of time, on their phones and mobile devices and computers, etc. So make sure you have plenty of content. It should be engaging content, because they will scroll away or click to the next thing. But it's no longer a thing where it has to be under 2 minutes or whatever time limit you had before.
Right.
So, Dave, what do you think? So, people are scrolling, and video is the best content. How do you hook people right off the bat? Everybody in this business talks about you got to stop the scroll.
Right.
You got to stop people in their tracks. When they're scrolling, they have to say, wait, and something has to snag their
Yeah.
attention. How do you do that with video in your experience?
Well, it needs to be in like the first, 5 to 10 seconds. You need to have something that really identifies what content you're talking about. So, a lot of times what you can do, like let's say you're going to have a live conversation, or maybe you've got a pre-recorded something. You want something right away in the beginning that is going to indicate, hey, we're going to be, like could be like a quote that you pull, one of the extremely valid points that you have in your video, put that right up front, and then say, and we're going to answer that here in this video, something that's going to give them that little hook of this is what we're going to talk about. This is what we're going to address. This is how your life is going to be better. This is why it's going to be so entertaining and so funny. You've got to have that little bit of something right up front that's going to want them to stick around for that final segment.
It's good. Another thing that I think is important when you're posting a video on social media is remember the sound is going to be automatically off until they click on it and decide to turn the sound on. So if the video that you're sharing is talking, it's important to have subtitles.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people are not going to get engaged. And if you don't have subtitles, there needs to be a lot of attention grabbing happening. Maybe if they can't hear what you're saying, they can still see what's happening through the visuals that they're seeing in the video.
Right.
Yeah. So then after video, the next most relevant kind of content would be photos or graphics. And but there's still even a trick to those. Not just any photo is going to be considered engaging. So there's some ideas of how to spark people's interests. If you can spark their curiosity
Right.
in some capacity. If you can entertain them or make them laugh in some capacity, those types of things are likely to get engagements, likely to get shares. Something you just have to spark their interest and think about. Once again, we say this, I think almost every episode, is not about you. Okay. So when you're on social media, you're not trying to sell your product. You're trying to engage with your customer. You're you're there to serve them. You're there because they're the hero. They're the cool people. And you are just glad that they bought your product. So keep that in mind with all of your content. It's okay to tell people about a sale, especially like we said earlier, if you're offering something exclusive for Facebook, users or any kind of social media user that's following you, that's great. But just, think about the way you're wording things. Don't sound like you're just trying to sell all day long.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, 2009 era when Facebook was first coming out, and they launched, the fan pages and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
The buzz in the industry was all about try and post something that's the cutest or the funniest or the best. So it was a focus on, and for some reason cats were always the subject of choice to
Cats still are.
make sure that all of those boxes are being checked.
Yeah.
Kittens especially.
Well, I mean, and humor is, in advertising has always been a great thing if you can do it well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if that fits your company and that's who you are, then use humor definitely. But if that doesn't come naturally to the personality of your brand and who you are, don't force it. Just be authentic, and you can find those other ways that connect in a similar way. I think what humor does is it disarms us, it entertains us, it's memorable, right? Mm-hmm. So we can find other ways to hit those same points in a different way. And I think it's interesting too to talk about, like, we don't want to come across as like sales first. But we do need to make sure we have clear calls to action, right? We do. So you still want to have the clarity of your message and people to understand, like, well, what do I do? You're talking about solving my problem, but now what? How how do I engage with you, right?
Right.
So you can still be clear without pushing a sale as the first, point of contact.
Exactly.
So if you sell caskets, you shouldn't use humor as your hook, and you shouldn't try and force the sale by killing
You'd be dead wrong
somebody.
to do that, Nathan. No, I mean, you probably maybe you might have a way of doing it. I don't know, like what, like Gene Simmons sells Kiss caskets, right? Have you heard about that?
Oh my
No.
gosh.
Yeah, apparently, if you're a Kiss fan, you could buy a Kiss casket.
Wow.
So
you
there's
can
all
be
kinds of
buried
people
in
out there.
a coffin that's branded with the Kiss logo.
I haven't done very much research into it.
Huh.
So maybe certain, but yeah, in general, I think, if you're funeral services, you probably want people to have that kind of feeling that they want to have in a memorial service.
There's probably a niche out there though for that, because
Sure.
everybody's like, oh, we're the empathy
Yeah.
casket salesperson. If you're drowning in that sea and you want to stand out, you have to be
you
like,
got your own
we're the
niche."
humor casket people. We have smiley faces, polka dot.
It's so funny that you bring up this whole casket thing. I'm thinking. At first, I was thinking to myself, would a funeral service even kind of like would they even do well on social media? Because another really important thing on social media is to stay positive. You have to stay positive. People don't want to follow sad stories or angry stories or anything like that. You're going to lose people really fast. So you kind of have to be positive. But then I got an idea. If you
Dun, dun, dun.
if you were a company that provided memorial services, how wonderful would it be to post about the obituary of a person and have this service where you're honoring the lives of the people that are being remembered,
Memorialized.
Memorialized.
Wow.
Yes. And how many people would share that though? Every person who knew the person who passed away and loved them and cared about them and was grieving, they would share that.
Sure.
And they would say, and you would get seen.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just my theory.
Yeah,
Exploit the dead.
But you're not exploiting the dead. You're honoring them. You're creating a place for them.
Okay.
Well, to take it in a serious vein. One video that we had done, we do a lot of work with the medical community, with hospitals and things like that. So the local children's hospital, Valley Children's, we did a video for a tragic event. This young girl was in a fatal car accident, and the parents were actually donating her organs. So they do this amazing thing where they call it an honor walk, and it's kind of just taking this young patient from where she's been receiving her treatment into surgery, essentially, where they're going to get ready to be able to pass these organs along to people that are desperately needing them. And the hospital staff and family members and friends all line the hospital walls, and she makes her like a procession way throughout that. That video that were honored to be a part of has millions of views.
Wow.
And it's just a heartbreaking video, and so it is positive, but it's also very intense and heavy, and so and again, that really isn't about anything other than raising some awareness, giving some support to this family, showing honor where honor is due. But it does cause you to think. It causes you to think about situations like that, and we know. So that's one way where people are engaged for sure, because it is so touching and it does reach into someone's life, that it is something that people actually do want to watch and share and be a part of.
Wow.
Wow. That is an extremely valid point, Dave. I mean, I feel like we kind of, we started with caskets and then kiss caskets, and then we started talking about remembering people and honoring lives, and somehow we have gotten here, but
We've been redeemed by
we
Dave.
have been
Thank you, Dave.
redeemed.
So
But I think that the point, that the extremely valid point here is, even when it's a sad story, if you can be inspirational,
yeah,
there's
inspirational. That's good.
inspirational is share worthy. If you can move a person, and
And so there's redeeming value in it. You might be talking about, and this is like even we were talking about in our last, in one of the episodes that's coming up here with Charity Sesnick from Marjorie Mason Center.
Right.
It's a difficult subject and topic, but you can find the positive and the redeeming and the those elements from that, right?
Mm-hmm. It's good stuff. Okay, well, we're going to switch gears for just a minute, and I want to give some stats that I think are really helpful in knowing your audience. Again, hopefully you already know who your customers are and what kind of people they are. You want to keep in mind that even if you're talking to your customers on social media, I said at the beginning, it's a different platform. There's a different set of rules for engagement and formality and all that kind of stuff. So it's important to know what audience you can find on which platforms.
This is good.
Yeah?
Yeah, because people want to know, we talked a lot about Facebook. Well, is my audience on Facebook? What if they're on
Right.
Twitter? How do I reach the people on Twitter? What do I do on Twitter? Do I do the exact same thing on Facebook that I do on Twitter? And do I do that on LinkedIn? And then do I do that on TikTok?
Yeah. Where are my customers and clients hanging out?
Yeah. So I'm glad you're talking about this.
Good. Okay. Well, yeah. And there's probably a few social media channels that, they just might not be worth your time based on who your audience is and where you find them. And sometimes I think you can figure out whether or not you're engaging with people based on what kind of interactions you're getting with them. Maybe if you're posting the exact same thing on Instagram that you're on LinkedIn and you're getting different results, it's because you shouldn't post that's exactly the same way. Keep doing what you're doing if it's working, but if it's not working, figure out why. So, we'll just talk really quick about the main social media platforms. First of all, Facebook, 2.7 billion worldwide users. The last time I checked, I don't even know. It's probably different every day. So interesting in terms of gender, it's a little bit more male than female. There's 56% males and 44% female on Facebook. And then your largest demographic is going to be the 25 to 34-year-old range. And then a close second is the 35 to 44. So people on Facebook are typically going to be between 25 and 44. Now, there has been some news stories about how a lot more of the older generation are joining Facebook. And that's kind of been a little phenomenon. There are more of the older generation joining Facebook, but they still don't make up a large percentage of the population.
Interesting.
So, yeah. So let's talk about Instagram. 1 billion users, and Instagram is 57% female, so slightly more women on Instagram than on Facebook, and also than men on Instagram. There's a slightly younger demographic on Instagram between the age of 18 to 34. So me being a 42-year-old woman, I'm apparently a little bit old for Instagram. I didn't know that. Maybe I'm just young
According to your
at heart.
stats, you're just simply not a user. You do not use
Yeah.
Instagram.
I'm just not the predominant user.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk Twitter. I was really interested. I thought it was really interesting to hear what was going on with Twitter. 68% of people on Twitter are male. 68%. To me, that is, that's a lot. I wasn't expecting that. And then
That's because we keep things short.
Yep. When you limited it to 140 characters, women were like, nope.
oh my gosh, that's funny and true. So a little bit older generation on Twitter as well. You're looking at age 30 to 49 makes up 44% of the users on Twitter. And another statistic about Twitter is that Twitter users are more likely to be educated and they're more likely to be Democrats than the general public.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I think that's useful stuff to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a theory on that if you want to hear it.
Sure. Let's hear it.
So I remember several times like some big news broke and it was pro-Republican, pro-conservative, that type of news, that flavor. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, oh, I wonder if this is trending on Twitter. And so I went to Twitter and it was not trending. And so the story I was telling myself is like Twitter is censoring this. They're trying
but it's the users are just not.
They're just catering to their users.
Yeah. Or there's just not as many people touting that story because there's not as many of that ilk.
Could be.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about LinkedIn. 738 million users on LinkedIn. The gender split here is pretty close, 49% female, 51% male. The age group is 46 to 55. So if
Definitely
you're looking to
older
reach
demographic here.
Yep, a little bit older demographic, LinkedIn is your place. Pinterest. While there's mostly men on Twitter, it should be no surprise that it's mostly women on Pinterest. 78% female demographic on Pinterest. That's huge. 22% male. And, between Nathan and I, when I love Pinterest, he hates it. I did make him make a Pinterest account so that we could look at swimming pools together.
It's interesting too. Like both Instagram and Pinterest are both sort of more image forward platforms, right? And it seems like that females are responding more into those image-based platforms, and males are responding more to the text, based, I would say.
Which is interesting because you've heard all these stories about, on average, women speak tens of thousands of words more per day than men do. And their vocabularies are...
But don't you know an image is worth 1,000 words?
Aha. So that's why they're just being more efficient.
There you go.
We're saying more. We're saying even more with our pictures. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the age group for Pinterest is age 30 to 49.
No, that's really interesting. I'm still most shocked by the Facebook thing because I've been telling clients for years that the average Facebook user is 50 years old. But I haven't really checked the stats since I learned that, back in probably 2013. So I've been lying. If I told you that, I apologize here on the internet.
Well, I was going to say, it could be the median age, possibly, rather than like the average.
Oh yeah. I suppose, yeah. Or even the average could work too, because it's just, average,
It does feel
50,
like
50 would be the average between 0 and 100. So.
Yeah. It does feel like it's a broad spectrum that even if maybe not everyone is super engaged on Facebook, everyone has Facebook and checks in with it once in a while. I don't know. That's completely anecdotal evidence there. But
Yeah.
It seems to be my experience that, it's a pretty broad spectrum, but as far as who's actually engaged, there's definitely demographics that people fall into there.
Absolutely. Well, as I was doing this research, which we will go ahead and put links to this research on our show notes on our website at extremelyvalidpoints.com if you'd like to look more deeply into this and dig a little bit more deeply into these stats. But one of the things that I saw that I thought was fascinating is the average Facebook user spends 38 minutes per day on Facebook. I couldn't tell you the other ones, but Facebook had the highest amount of time spent per day.
Wow.
It's interesting too because Facebook is such a mix of media, right? You've got posts, like text posts, you've got video posts, you got images, and you have links to other things, news articles and things like that. And you can find those on the other sites as well, but it's very accessible on Facebook in a way that it isn't on the other things. The others seem to be a little bit more niche driven.
Mm-hmm.
What about Google Plus? We didn't talk about Google Plus.
Well, like I said, we were only going to talk about the big ones.
Okay.
And does Google Plus actually even exist
They
anymore?
don't. I was just making a joke.
Okay.
MySpace.
I do think we should mention Snapchat and TikTok because,
Yeah.
you know, millions and millions and millions and millions of people are on there. And even if they're mostly like teens or tweens, there's also 20s and even 30s and 40s.
And during the pandemic, a lot of moms got on TikTok.
Yeah. And so I decided like last month, I think it was, I hired my daughter. I said every day, so I'm going to do this strategy because somebody else did this and they talked about it on a podcast. And it was like, I posted something every day on TikTok. And after, I can't remember how long it was, but like 6 weeks, I had 3,000 followers. So it was like, there's a strategy of just doing something every single day.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to commit to this. So I hired my daughter. Every day, I want you to just say World Light Media on TikTok. And that's it. And I'll pay you.
Ah.
And she wanted to maximize it, take it to the next level and do so much more than that. So my marketing plan failed.
She wanted to do dances and life hacks.
Yeah, she wanted to do life hacks.
The kinds of things that you actually find on TikTok.
Yes.
Right. She wanted to use TikTok in the way that it's being used by her peers and not the way that I wanted her to use it. But still, she should have just done what I'm paying her to do.
Yeah, but interesting that basically just having consistent content out there, you'll get a following.
I think that's got to be true about any of these social media channels. And we want to talk more about social media, advertising, and marketing in the future. If there's something specific you want to hear about or learn about or know about, reach out to us at questions@extremelyvalidpoints. We'd love to try to answer your questions if we know the answers. But yeah, I definitely want to talk more about Facebook. One thing we didn't mention that we'll talk more about later, but I'll just throw it out there now is using stories is a great way to beat that algorithm that we were talking about earlier. Posting to your story will get you at the top of somebody's feed, regardless of how engaging it is. I still think your content should be engaging, but if you want to try and skip all that, post to a story, that's a great way to get more visibility and kind of beat that. For now, they'll probably change it later.
Sure.
But does anybody have any inspiration they'd like to share for this week?
I was inspired by our last podcast, talking to Charity Susnick. Yeah, and so just before this one we did the one with talking with Marjorie Mason. Charity Susnick is their director of communications. Yeah, I think what inspired me was just hearing that even during a pandemic, during COVID, like the community here in Fresno was just so generous and giving to such an important cause. That inspired me. I really, good job, Fresno. You guys, well done. Amazing, awesome people.
No, I agree. I think that when you're in a pandemic and also, we just went through an election year and there's a lot of pain in the world right now. There's a lot of division. We have social injustices happening and it all is happening all at once. And when you look at it all at once, you think to yourself, what is happening in the world? What has become of this place that we live in? But I think that when you have opportunities to look a little bit closer, you can see that humanity, for the most part, is still very kind and very giving, and that we still care about our brothers and sisters and our neighbors, and that often when there is tragedy and difficult things going on, that is really when people can shine the most and when we have the most opportunity to extend love and grace to people.
Wow.
Yeah, that makes me think about this has been quoted many times, but Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers, he
Love
would say
Mr.
his
Rogers.
mom would tell him, whenever you see scary things on the news and bad things happening, look for the helpers, because there's always someone there that's trying to help out, right? And that's what Marjorie Mason Center is doing in the midst of these difficult times where violence and all kinds of stuff is on the rise. There are people out there that are helping. They're making things better for other people.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that reminds me of something I wanted to say earlier in the podcast, because you had mentioned how you call it the antisocial networking because it does feel like that. I even took several breaks, long breaks, because it just felt so toxic.
Yeah.
And there's this perception that the sky is falling, people are souring, the society is breaking down, and I think that's kind of why this was so inspirational to me, is because if you look through the cracks and you see, through, sure, there are definitely issues, but there are bright spots that are emerging out of this where people are helping each other. There's people that are rising to be champions in a down time. I think it might be even presenting opportunities for people to shine their light and to make a difference in the world.
Yeah, like the thing about like become the change that you want to see in the world, right? I mean, we can be that lifeline instead of going on social media just to rant and to vent, because it can feel like, oh, well, I've got to say my piece about this, and I got to, correct everyone's thinking on this issue, like
As if we could.
right, But we were just watching Brian Regan, the comedian. He said, yeah, yesterday I was on social media and someone posted a political thing, and then the response they got was, wow, you really changed my mind. Thanks. Good point. Oh, no, wait. What I saw was a unicorn. That was actually more realistic. I mean, you don't change people's minds there, but
Right.
But we can offer something positive, right? We can not feed into the negativity. We can add positivity.
Absolutely. We can do that with our business channels as well.
Because the world, it wouldn't hurt anything to just be a little bit more positive, right?
Right.
Right. Well, this has been a really fun discussion. I hope that our audience enjoyed it as well. If you're still listening, thank you.
Thank you.
We do appreciate you spending time with us and listening. And we would love to hear your feedback. We'd love to find out what you like about this podcast and maybe what you don't like about it. Let us know. Tell us how we're doing. And you can do that by going to our website and filling out our contact form at extremelyvalidpoints.com. Also, please, we would love it so much if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you listen. Just give us a like, a share, follow us, show us some love, because we appreciate you and it would help us out too. Thanks, you.
Everyone.
Have a
Bye.
great one.
Bye.
Thanks for spending time with us at the Extremely Valid Points podcast. To learn more about this episode, see our show notes at extremelyvalidpoints.com. Be sure and subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you download your podcasts. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/extremelyvalid. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram at EVP_podcast. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time with some extremely valid points.